Guess who got more love for you?
Oh my gosh, Roger, hi!
Hello my little paper cutouts. Based on the fact that I'm using the different character model this time and on the changed intro, you probably already know, most likely not, that today's video's topic is fundamental paper education once more. Or not like really, like it's difficult to explain, but before I get into the shenanigans, I just wanted to mention I'll be putting Hellever's background from now on every time in the background, maybe something different. Maybe if I have a speed paint ready, I'm putting this in the background, but like, as I said, I don't like doing speed paints. But if I ever record one again, I'm just putting this one in the background. But I gotten some pretty positive feedback on it. One comment that say it makes the video more interesting, so like, hey, that's enough for me. But now more to the organizational stuff, I would call it, I don't know. The thumbnail and the playlist, probably going to say something like my not FPE AU, which has the not in air quotes, which let me just explain. If you look at the characters and the art style and everything, it's obviously still all inspired by FPE, Katie's art style and stuff like that. But with all the stuff that has happened over the last time, recently, like Katie wanted to quit the internet completely, which also means it would feel extremely wrong using her characters for me, which would feel wrong in general, but like now even more than it did before. And Candace the Aggiverse was the person I was turning to the next, but he also left the fandom. Like he's still doing content and stuff like that and kept Mr. Barrel, which is good enough for me. I still love the character really, but like it kinda ruined me. Like don't worry, I still follow him on his Discord and everything. By the way, join my Discord. My mods tell me I'm supposed to promote this more, but yeah, it just doesn't hit the same as before. So where does the part with the not FBE AU come into place? Well, I had a bunch of characters, most of all Sammy. I still really like Sammy. Now after I've given him massive amounts of trauma and I didn't want to abandon him or kill him off again, so I just decided I'm going to create my own thing that's just heavily inspired by FPE and everything on it, but still can be called original content. Like, don't get me wrong, after we are done with all the semi-lore and I'm showing off the old and new characters, like many characters are very much inspired by FPE characters, some more heavily than others, and I just think the best case scenario is to try to do my own thing and not acknowledge which is the inspiration of. Like, you get my point, I'm still using the characters, but I'm not using their characters anymore because they're kinda now mine, because I gave them redesigns and changed the lore a bit and stuff. So that is at least fine for me based on the ethics. But now with this change, some things changed, and something I really like of the concept is kind of a mix of FPE and Hero Academia. And basically my concept was like that this is a special school where like superpowered people come, kind of like in My Hero Academia, but with the little twist that superpowers aren't as a widespread thing and they're more seen as a danger to society than something like a hero, like Superman as a symbol of hope or something. So it has also a little bit inspiration of STP Foundation, that they are kind of locked up but also in this school environment. So like it's a bit iffy, but like if you have murderous teachers like Mrs. C, I always question myself why nobody had to step in like a regular school. So this kind of explains nobody can step in because most of them have superpowers and like are contained by the government anyway, so that's why it's okay and doesn't raise eyebrows by any parents or something like that. Okay, but we are now already almost 4 minutes into the video and I haven't even talked about the first character. Sammy. His story pretty much stayed the same. Like, Sammy was a pretty average student, nothing too big about in any ways. Like, he kinda sucked but always got by in some way. But after some time he failed one of Miss Crystal's classes. I renamed her. And as she is prone to do, she unalived him in the most brutal fashion, and basically at that point he discovered that he has powers and can control the light, or aka the shadows around him, to reform his body. But at that point it also was kinda too late. He was already beaten up to the point of almost being unable to live anymore. Like, the entire reason he still functions is because he's holding himself still alive, and also because Miss Crystal hit him through the skull and damaged a big part of his brain. He also had to replace his brain himself, so they're kinda with the nerve endings and the how the brain functions, was some things broken, so that in the beginning Sammy basically thought that he is now two persons, kind of like Venom, that the demon side is his own character, that he's only fighting for control, and that everything like his violent tendencies he started to develop and his cannibal tendencies, all the reason of this evil side. But after some time, like, he went back to normal classing and just tried hiding it every time he basically hulked out. But after some time he realized, I'm yet unsure how he realized, but after some time he realized he and the evil form is basically the same person. And at that moment he was basically like, okay, he's completely lost it, and went on a killing streak and escaped from the paper school. By the way, I'm still calling it paper school, but paper is now an acronym. I forgot what the acronym was, but I'm putting it on screen if I didn't forget it. And basically the security guards started to hunt him down and try to get it back. But basically in Sammy's mind, he was in a mindset, if he's already the villain, why isn't he trying to go full on super villain and just destroy the entire world? Which he tried to do then. He went and started to destroy cities all around the paper school. It was in a hidden location and later moved after Sammy, but the security guard called reinforcements, and the government sent over a bunch of soldiers and armed men, and also partially drones and stuff like that. Just everything. They were basically throwing everything against the wall to see if they can stop Sammy, because at that point he already had his powers for a little short time. So the principal was already worried how strong he might possibly become, as Sammy's abilities is just, as long as there are shadows around him, he can control them and form the shadows into objects, weapons and stuff like that, and use them to regenerate himself. Important clarification, shadows, not darkness. Like, if it's night, he couldn't just go around everywhere, because like then theoretically it has to become night once more and Sammy could spread around the entire galaxy, because space is basically dark. So only like shadows, but like even in the dark there are shadows. So like, and now just imagine, while you're watching this video, look around you and see if there's anything casting a shadow, no matter how small it is, or even like just look under your feet and you're casting a shadow. So the danger of this one was really real. Of course Sammy couldn't control all shadows around the globe. It had like a 1 to 2 kilometer radius, but they basically tried to stop them and chased after him. Sammy realized that there was a bunch of soldiers coming to his location, so he decided to make the smart move and flee towards a more sandy, deserty area nearby. And what he was basically able to do is lure all the soldiers together, that they are on one spot together next to a big sandy area. And what he did was to provoke one of the guards to shoot up at the sandy hill and creating a dust cloud out of sand, which the shadow of the small dust cloud, Sammy used to control the shadow, pick up more sand, throw it more into the air, and repeat that process until a giant sand cloud was covering all the soldiers together. And basically at that point Sammy had fair play to do anything what he wanted. And on that day alone, 500 soldiers lost their lives, along with millions damages and military costs, until the military decided, we're going to do one last desperate move, and picked all the current experiments they had in the paper school and used them as soldiers. And what they basically did, they sent over a bunch of fighter jets armed with napalm bombs to first of all weaken Sammy and minimize the darkness around him. Sammy of course started to pick also the jets out of the sky while they were flying around him, but not everyone, so he did get hit by the bombs. And after that some of the classmates and teachers teamed up on him, and the most of the work did Miss Crystal actually. Beat him up for a second time, and he was injured but still very much capable of putting up a fight. But in that moment, one of the students named Lily, which is the OC of Boom Boom 3D, basically went over to him and gave him like emotional talk and stuff like that. And Sammy kinda broke down and admitted that it's pointless and he doesn't even know himself why he started doing that. And from that point on, at first the government tried containing him, like with rooms with powerful lights and mirrors all around, but Sammy always managed to get out, but never really tried to escape, just showed that he could get out. And then he kind of went passively from then on, and also the scientist helped him to figure more out how his brain works, so he doesn't have this episodes and raging burnouts where he like just starts destroying everything. There's more stuff about Sammy I could say, more little fun facts, but I still have a bunch of other characters I want to introduce, and this video is already, I see the recording is 7 minutes long, plus the first 4 minutes, and I don't want this to be a 11 minutes video. but basically just for Sammy's character, he is still somewhat of a really big threat. Like if he gets too angry or starts having one of his episodes, everyone on site gets like freaked out, and if he actually tries to escape and go on a rampage again, they have now some better countermeasurements, and also Miss Crystal has volunteered to beat him up every time he steps too much out of line. And with that, this would also be the perfect translation towards Miss Crystal. Who Miss Crystal is inspired from is obviously, but it's basically Miss Crystal's ability is that she just gets more powerful the more angrier she gets, and there's basically no limit to how angry she can get. And she basically can somewhat control her anger, a little bit not, a little bit yes, but she gets physically so angry that she warps the space around her, that like if she gets angry enough, the space around her starts to turn physically red, and she gets stronger and faster if she's in rage mode. And if she's in rage mode, she also could tank bullets that just shatter off her. And basically there are two kinds of people at the paper school. There are the normal people, or kind of like the scientists there, and there are the anomalies. And basically the anomalies can sometimes be teachers, sometimes be students, sometimes just be workers at the school. But they all have a class-based system, which is based on tier list. So S being the best and A being the one after that, and so on and so forth. And basically Miss Crystal and Sammy, at least at this point, are the highest tier all alone. Sammy could destroy the globe very much if he wanted to. Like give him just enough time and he could possibly do it. And Miss Circle is also an S tier, because there's simply no limit to how strong she could theoretically get. And also the class system isn't really based on just pure danger alone, but just on how anomalous their abilities are. So it means a teacher that could completely be harmless might be on a higher list than someone who is actively trying to hurt others, just because their ability is more anomalous and has more potential to research and stuff like that than the others. But yeah, Miss Crystal has a compass on her hand, which she can disappear and appear at will, which has a giant needle like compasses do, and she's genetically modified with a gene that gave her her abilities. And the thing is, Miss Crystal used to be a very good, very average teacher, but the thing is she was mistreated a lot by one specific class, which made her accept the volunteer offer of taking the syrup, which basically turned her into Miss Crystal, but also forced her to start having to do cannibalism, so yeah. And the thing about the two S tiers are that they have to actually live in the school, like they have their own apartments in the school. Miss Crystal has her office building where she is, and behind the office building is like a door where she can go into her room. And Sammy just lives in the school everywhere, like in the abandoned spots where the generators are, or just like everywhere in the darkness where students normally don't go to. But they are actually not allowed to leave paper school because they're so dangerous in theory. For example, every time Sammy has to go from point A to point B, there's an entire convoy of trucks transporting him. Why more in a few moments, but like, and for Miss Crystal, it's like she never is allowed to go outside unless there are 4 armed guards surrounding her with tranquilizer guns. And now honestly, I just want to do the rest of the characters and the rest of the stuff I want to tell in a lightning round, because I have already spent way too much time on everything else and I didn't expect everything to get this long. So for a school, you obviously need students, and while I do intend on adding more, for example, I intend on redrawing this character, but I don't want to talk anything about it yet, as I haven't actually made art for it. But for those I actually did made art of, I'm quickly going to go them down. And the two ones that are made by the city artist, which also was the creator of this one I just showed. The two characters are Saturn and Amalia. First of all, Saturn is one I really like, because this was the original one that got basically added to the story as a fan add-on, I basically call it, whatever. And the lore for Saturn is, I don't know if I'm supposed to call it funny, because it's actually very sad, but to be honest, the creator also shows it in a very funny way, so please don't blame me. But Saturn, her lore is basically, her anomalous ability is basically that those rings around her head are what's obviously abnormal. And the way that she got it was that basically she got rocks thrown in her head, and the rocks just shattered and started floating around her. Like, she even made a little animation about it, which I'm probably going to show in the background, hopefully. But that's everything, that's literally all there is. I mean, of course, there's like more, but still, again, no time. I don't want to waste time. But I think the thought just of stuff that you can put around her rings and just floating in it, I just think of the thought really funny in a day-from-day school life. And also the thing about Saturn is that she's just way too nice to people at the point where she starts to neglect herself. But next up there is Amalia, and basically Amalia is very shy and introverted if she's not around her friends. If she's around her friends, that it works better. And she basically doesn't speak, or like rarely speaks. And her anomalous ability is that she can basically create origami that comes to life, if I understand it. I kind of moved away from the concept, hey, they are all made out of paper, and because they are fundamental paper education, but it's no longer that, it's just like regular people and the style of it. But I don't know, I still find this a very cool trope to kind of remind of the origins. But yeah. But anyways, next up is Timothy. Timothy is... I really like Timothy, honestly. I was unsure if the red clothes would be the right fit, but honestly they look quite okay. Also with Saturn, at that point I tried keeping the black, grey and white style, but at the point of Saturn and Timothy I was like, nah, I'm just going on full color mode. But basically, Timothy's abnormal ability is just that he has, instead of a right hand, he just has a bunch of dark tentacles that act just like fingers, and he can't morph them into stuff or like change their size. The difference is that he doesn't have a hand but has tentacles in his hand, and also only the right hand. There's nothing different abnormal about him except maybe that his eyes glow in the dark. But speaking about eyes, he is wearing an eye patch because he lost one of his eyes during a raid on the school. I get into that in the last part of the video. Oh, actually, sorry, never mind, correction. He didn't lost his eye, he just got a big ugly scar on his eye, which he still has the eye, it's just he covers up the scar. And basically he tried protecting people, that's how he got injured. He's a very protective and caring person. And also another fun fact I really would like to mention about him is that he's very attractive and all the girls in the school really like him, but the problem is he's secretly gay. Fun fact, he's actually, I made a bunch of different characters from all over the LGBTQ flag, but Timothy is my first gay character, so yeah. And I mean, now that I told you this information, you kinda can see it a bit more on his clothes, what kind of clothes he's wearing, but I picked those clothes specifically for him. And at last, at least at the moment of the student class, is Yuri. By the way, just a fun fact to the name. I wanted to create like a Russian type character, and I created his design. In the end I needed to name a name, and I'm not good at doing names, so I mostly ask other people, but nobody responded, so I thought of something myself, and all the Russian names I could have thought of were Call of Duty villains. I'm sorry. But honestly, I like the name Yuri. It's, I don't know, I think it's just funny to say, or like not funny to say, I think it's just cool to say. And Yuri grew up without any parents pretty much around, and in a certain point in his early life he discovered that his blood has some form of magical ability, like it can enhance people's strength, durability and speed and stuff like that. And he kinda used that ability first for small crime gigs to afford himself like special equipment for his hands so he can actively drain his blood and use it as his own tool. But basically at that point he became a really good assassin and worked himself up the ladder. But honestly he just wanted a normal life at some point because he never really got one in the first place. And at one point he was hired to take out a person of interest, and while preparing for that, said person of interest, alongside with the entire city he was in, was attacked coincidentally by Sammy. So later then he discovered the paper school and kind of thought this was his best chance of getting in at least somewhat normal life, like he never went to school in first place. He is really good at combat and martial arts, and he also has lots of money, but never actually went to a normal school, so he just decided this is his best option. And basically walked up to the security guards and the principal and said like, hello, I have anomalous abilities, please take me in. And of course the security guard and stuff and looked confused. And after that he said, I could also kill the guy next to you to prove it. And then basically that was the way how he got into the school. Oh, and by the way, he has a Russian accent, but I can't do one myself, or at least I don't feel like I want to do one right now. But also on his head there's like a special rune. It's inked in with his blood. But the rune is something special and brings me honestly to the last topic. Sammy, if he uses his ability, or if he injures someone, for example, if he cuts off your arm or something and it leaves a giant scar, there's a possibility that the scar will have the shape of some form of runes, or for example, if he destroys a building or like an area with spikes or his shadows, then there's like a small possibility that runes remain wherever it was where Sammy used his abilities. And basically those runes completely work independently from Sammy's ability, and they can basically be used as black magic, which Yuri started using after some time because they're very effective. But also when Sammy was going around and had his little outburst, a bunch of people actually saw him, because not everyone died, or maybe they just got injured. And some people actually went a little crazy and thought Sammy might be some form of godlike entity and made a cult. And those were the raiders, that because they think that Sammy is being held captive in the school and can't leave on his free will, so they try to raid the school more often than once to try to free him, quote unquote, but they're more often apprehended by the school staff and the teachers and the students and stuff like that. And basically what they do to worship Sammy, most of them cover or blind themselves, because the runes, one of the abilities is that it gives you like the ability to still see even though your eyes physically don't work anymore, but you still can see your surroundings like you have normal eyes. Also, depending on how much you dedicate yourself to a rune, it enhances your strength and durability. Like for example, you can just wear a rune on your clothes and it would help you a little bit, but for example if you get it tattooed, the rune would have a stronger effect on your body, and of course the more and the harder you get those runes, the more the ability stacks. And also the runes kind of have a addictive purpose to them, like if you start using them there is a chance you can get addicted to them, and that's basically what all the cultist members does. Like at itself the cultists are very accepting to other people, but because I have seen some people in my original announcement of them saying they want to join the cult, you really don't want to, because if you don't really think that Sammy is a god, or you have some form of bias against him, they will be pretty violent towards you. But they are chill to regular people, because like regular people just don't notice or didn't have realized that Sammy is their god, quote unquote. And Sammy's opinion pretty much is about them, okay, what the fuck? Like he doesn't like them, he finds them weird, but sometimes if they actually manage to get through to him, he teases them a little bit by playing along, but seriously he just likes to stay with the paper school rather than the weird cultist guys. But anyways, this should already finish off the video. I don't want to talk more, or better to say I do want to talk more, but this video is already half an eternity long, and the thing is, the longer the videos gets, the longer I feel like I'm forcing you to stay here, or the less interested you get. So I don't know how many people will read this, how many people will care until this point, because this is a longer video. But just the thing is, I have been bottling up all those ideas and creative ideas for months now, and I had always planned stuff in differently, but I really wanted to finally get this out of my system. And honestly, I kind of lose the joy while producing this video. Don't get me wrong, I'm still going to continue have this AU, but having worked so much on it kind of just made me lose taste for a while. I definitely will come back to it at some point when I just want to change up things a bit. Anyways, I talked already way too much. Bye, I hope you have a great day, and remember...
Oh man, I'm kind of bored. I'm gonna go bug raptor. Wait, what's this? Oh my god!